I've read stories of murders happening in cities in broad daylight and no one doing anything because no one else around them was doing anything. I have heard story after story after school shooting where people say, I thought something was wrong, but I didn't want to be the one to make a fuss, and nobody else was. And the exact same thing even happens in the church. You don't want to be the one rocking the boat. Everyone else looks like they're getting their stuff together. So we'll pray in small groups, we'll meet in progress, and everything's fine. And while that's a huge problem on its own, it seems clear to me that the most honest we are ever able to be with our struggles before God is when we are alone with Him. Because that's when the truth of who we are comes out. But here's the thing. If you always have constant inputs, how can you ever truly lay out your burdens before Him? If you are constantly distracting yourself, if you're just constantly taking Advil while your feet are falling off, what are you doing? You need time where you can say, this is my real problem and I need help. But if you are constantly surrounded by others, you won't ever say that. Do you imagine the prayers of the Psalms happening first and foremost in great rooms of people, or the psalmist alone and exposed before the Lord? Where did Jesus lay out His greatest needs before He went to the cross? It wasn't in the temple. It was in the garden after He sent His disciples away. Third, be private in prayer because it is where you are made stronger. Jesus, I believe, is encouraging us to pray in private, not only so we would be humble before the Lord, although that is true, but because that is where a person is forged into who they will be. Private prayer strengthens us to take on the challenges of this world. The culmination of our actions, the culmination of who we are or what we determine to do by ourselves while we are alone. We are grown in this. The disciples, I believe, and this is where Matthew is going in here, so I believe it fits with what he's saying. They're encouraged to be private because not just because Jesus wants to prove that they're real disciples, but because it is in the private life that you actually flourish in His kingdom. It's where you can start bearing fruit to really be the salt and the light. The disciples need more than anything for God to hear their prayers. Like they are going to be sent out into a world that is hostile to them. How can they respond to this if they have never been forged in the private places?